Hey guys, it's Sevi, and today we're going to check out how Dodoco Tales performs with Yanfei in comparison to the Widsith and the Sacrificial Fragments, which are both 4-star gacha weapons. Now, Dodoco Tales is a free-to-play 4-star weapon that we can get in Klee's latest event, and you can also refine it all the way to R5 for free. Now, I wanted to know how Dodoco Tales performs on Yanfei because 1, I don't have Klee, 2, Yanfei is a 4-star character whom a lot of people got last patch, so I'm sure that a lot of people are wondering if Dodoco Tales can also be used well on Yanfei. So we're going to test it against these other 2 weapons, and in our next video, we're going to test Dodoco Tales against Solar Pearl and Lost Prayers, so please watch out for that video. Currently, my Yanfei is level 81 out of 90. She uses a 4-piece Wanderer's Troop, and this time I've given her a crit rate circlet. In all honesty, my Wanderer's Troop pieces aren't the best, but they have carried me through Spiral Abyss, so it's what I'm sticking with right now. Now my Yanfei is C4, but that mostly affects her stamina consumption on C1, her crit rate against enemies with lower than 50% HP for C2, and for C4 she gets her own shield. These don't necessarily affect her damage output that much, but it'll be constant anyway, so that's just part of her build. And her talent levels are 8, 9, 8. Before we do the testing, let's take a look at Yanfei stats with each of the weapons. All of these weapons are level 70 out of 70, and all of them are R5, so we're comparing them toe-to-toe. So first we have the Widsith. The biggest pro of the Widsith is that its secondary stat is crit damage, which means that getting your crit ratio 1 to 2 is a lot easier with this weapon. Next we have the Sacrificial Fragments, which doesn't give Yanfei any additional crit stats. It doesn't buff her attack either, but it does buff her elemental mastery by quite a bit. And lastly, we have the Dodoco Tales, which doesn't have a crit stat again, but it does buff Yanfei's attack with that attack percent stat. And that brings Yanfei's attack about 200 to 300 up. Now for the actual testing, we're going to be doing a damage over time test against the Cryo Regisvine. I find this a more comprehensive test rather than trying to get the biggest numbers out because honestly, Widsith has that RNG factor where it has 3 different passives that it can apply to you, and then Sacrificial Fragments kind of requires a lot of elemental reactions to get a high number out of, which can skew the results. So we're going to be doing a damage over time because personally I find that a more practical test that allows you to see which one performs better consistently. In this test, I paired Yanfei with Diona just to give her something to react with from time to time and additional protection. On the leftmost we have Dodoco Tales, in the middle we have Widsith, and on the right we have Sacrificial Fragments. Now keep in mind that these weapons are still currently level 70 out of 70. Of course, the damage over time will be higher once you ascend and level up the weapons. Actually, my Yanfei can typically kill the Regisvine with just 1 cycle on her level 80 plus weapon, but we're doing these level 70 weapon comparisons for now so that they're evenly matched. Now Yanfei on the Widsith finishes first. And it takes quite a few seconds for Dodoco Tales to come second. And shortly after Dodoco Tales is Sacrificial Fragments. When I was doing the damage tests, it was consistent that the Widsith would always come first, the Dodoco Tales second, and the Sacrificial Fragments last. But does that mean that the Widsith is really the best among them? Well, let's look at Yanfei as a character and the factor of her team comps. In all honesty, all of these weapons are viable for Yanfei, even the Mappa Mare, which is the free-to-play craftable catalyst. But even though Sacrificial Fragments does up her elemental mastery, and Yanfei as a pyro unit can really take advantage of that with melt and vaporize and overload reactions, that passive on the Sacrificial Fragments is the least useful for her among these 3 weapons. Because if you look at the passive of the Dodoco Tales, it buffs Yanfei's charged attacks, and that's really a big part of her kit. You know, if you want to look at how important charged attacks are for Yanfei's kit, go check out my other video linked up above and in the description. That's why I put her on Wanderer's Troop. And Yanfei doesn't scale too badly on attack either, which is why the attack percent on the Dodoco Tales isn't bad. It's pretty good. But the Widsith still comes out a superior weapon, especially at R5 because of how large the passive buffs can go, and also because of that secondary crit damage stat. One thing that really makes that crit damage shine is Yanfei C2, which again increases crit rate against opponents with less than 50%. Also consider that if you level all these weapons all the way up to 90, Widsith is going to have a 55.1% crit damage as its secondary stat, which is crazy. The Dodoco Tales' secondary attack percent stat will also be 55.1% on level 90 out of 90, but still crit damage does scale higher than attack percent in almost every situation. So having Yanfei's crit stats are really important to her kit, and if you can accomplish those on just artifacts alone, then that would be great, and the Dodoco Tales will probably work a lot better for you. But as you can see from my artifacts, I don't have that much luck, so I would personally still opt for a weapon with a crit stat on it. So that's the end of today's comparison, guys. Watch out for our next video to see us compare the Dodoco Tales against the Solar Pearl and the Lost Prayers of the Sacred Wind, because honestly, those are the only other Catalyst weapons I have. But yeah, watch out for our next video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Please consider subscribing, dropping a like and a comment, and I'll see you all soon.